My name is Hannah Rivera, and for as long as I can remember, I have lived in the shadow of my older sister, Vanessa. She is everything I'm told I should be. Dazzling, charming, effortlessly in control. In family photos, she stands tall, her hair perfect, her smile wide, while I shrink beside her, trying to find a place where I don't look ordinary. At family dinners, Aunt Marisol gushes over her engagement prospects, while I'm asked for the umpteenth time why I'm still single and quiet. It's like I exist only as the consolation prize to Vanessa's spotlight. When I told Vanessa I was bringing a boyfriend to our parents' upcoming anniversary party, she smirked so hard I thought her cheeks might crack. "Finally, something interesting about you," she teased, her tone sugar, sweet but razor sharp. She leaned in, voice just loud enough for the rest of the room to hear. "Let's hope he's not imaginary this time." Her laughter bubbled through the room, and I felt heat creep up my neck, shame prickling like tiny needles. My cheeks burned, and for a moment, I wondered if I could vanish into the tablecloth. Late at night, after Vanessa's teasing faded into the clink of dishes and the hum of the kitchen, I replay how she always makes me feel inadequate. My heart aches when she brags about her success, her friends, her social calendar, as if I'm not allowed to have dreams of my own. She can flirt schools, careers, travel, and I'm left with this stale gag reel of being the nice but plain one. I try to roll my eyes, but I swallow hard instead, forcing myself to laugh politely when she calls me the Invisible Rivera. So when someone at work mentioned a guy named Liam Archer, someone smart, kind, and unexpectedly thoughtful, I let myself believe. We met by accident at my design job. He helped me resolve a glitch in a proposal I'd been obsessing over for days, and then offered to get coffee afterward. He didn't flirt loudly, didn't carry an ego. He just listened when I talked about my side hustle, my fears, and my quiet ambition. It felt safe, different in a way that made me want to believe in something real. But even as our friendship deepened into something like that tender, hopeful thing people call a relationship, I kept it to myself. Vanessa doesn't believe in gentle beginnings. To her, love is flashy, dramatic, and always on display. If I'd told her about Liam, she would have mocked him or me. She'd insist I was deluding myself, that I made him up to feel worthy. So I stayed silent, letting the lie about being single burn quietly beneath the surface. Then came the pressure from my parents. "Bring him," my mother said, her voice warm but insistent. "Just this once. Let us see the man who makes you happy." My father nodded behind her, hopeful, trusting. Vanessa laughed louder than I had ever heard her laugh that week. When I told her I didn't have a boyfriend, I was too busy, she said, too focused on work. But when I hesitated, her lips curled. "If you did have one, I'd like to meet him, as long as he's not a figment of your imagination." It was humiliating, and my heart twisted. For a second, I considered telling everyone he was fake, just to spare myself more ridicule. But then I realized, what if he wasn't imaginary? And what if she was wrong? So I made a decision I never thought I'd have the courage for. I told them and Vanessa that yes, I do have a boyfriend. His name is Liam Archer. He's kind, smart, and very real. Vanessa's face contorted in disbelief, her laughter strangled and sharp, like glass breaking. As the room spun for me, my phone vibrated in my pocket. My heart thudded so hard I almost dropped it. When I glanced down, I saw a new message from Liam. "Hannah, would you like to go to the gala with me this weekend? It's something special, and I'd love for you to be there by my side." In that moment, my chest tightened not from nerves, but from something else entirely. Hope. The next morning, Vanessa was already perched at the breakfast bar in our parents' kitchen, swirling her iced latte like she was stirring trouble into it. She barely looked up when I walked in, but I could feel her smirk before she even opened her mouth. "So, Hannah," she said, voice dripping with honeyed condescension, "does your imaginary boyfriend eat breakfast, or is he too busy being made of air?" My dad shot her a warning look, but she only shrugged, satisfied with herself. I took a slow breath, trying not to let her words sink their claws into me. I calmly told them that Liam had invited me to a gala, a real one, not something I made up, and that he wanted me there beside him. Vanessa froze for a moment, her eyes widening just slightly before she caught herself and scoffed. A gala? You? She said, as if I had just announced I was flying to the moon. My mom tried to hide the hopeful smile on her face, but even she seemed unsure. What kind of gala, sweetie? She asked, voice cautious, like she didn't want to risk believing me too much. I explained that it was a fundraising gala hosted by the Archer Foundation. My voice wavered slightly, not because I was lying, but because I knew exactly how Vanessa would react. Her lips parted in shock, then curled into a wicked grin. The Archer Foundation? She repeated with a laugh. Oh, that's good. That's really good. What's next, Hannah? He's secretly a prince? My face felt hot, and I looked down at my coffee just to escape her stare. The truth was, I didn't even know the full extent of Liam's world. I knew he had money, a lot of it, but he talked about it so little that I rarely thought about it. Every time we were together, he focused on me, my projects, my ideas, the things I dreamed of, even when I was afraid to say them out loud. He never flaunted anything, never bragged, never tried to impress. That's why I hadn't connected the dots. That Archer Foundation and Liam Archer were part of the same powerful family. Vanessa leaned back in her seat and crossed her arms, studying me like I was a puzzle she knew she could solve. You know what? She said with a glint in her eyes. Fine. Bring him. I could use a good laugh. She didn't hide her satisfaction, and her voice cut through the room like a blade. But don't say I didn't warn you. When he doesn't show, or when he turns out to be some guy you hired online, everyone's going to know you lied. I felt a sharp sting in my chest, but it only strengthened something inside me. Later that afternoon, when I texted Liam to accept the gala invitation, he responded almost immediately with a warm, excited message. He told me he'd send a car for me, that he couldn't wait for me to be there, that he'd been wanting to introduce me to people in his life. My heart fluttered at how genuine he sounded. It didn't feel forced or performative. It was like he'd been waiting for me to say yes. For the first time in a long time, I let myself smile without worrying who might tear it down. But that little bubble of warmth didn't last long once Vanessa barged into my room without knocking. She tossed a sequin dress onto my bed and said, "If you're going to pretend you belong somewhere like that, at least wear something that won't embarrass me." She said it casually, as if she were doing me a favor, but her tone dripped with the assumption that I was completely out of place. I held the dress in my hands, feeling the weight of her expectation crushing down on me. She walked out before I could even respond. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind raced between excitement and dread, hope and fear, possibility and humiliation. Every time I pictured the gala, my stomach twisted. What if Vanessa was right? What if I walked into a world I didn't belong in, and everyone saw me as the outsider she always claimed I was? But then I remembered Liam's voice, calm and steady and real. I remembered how he looked at me like I mattered, like he saw something in me no one else had bothered to look for. By morning, Vanessa was already planning her outfit for the gala, even though she wasn't invited. She strutted into the kitchen in a robe and said, "You know I'm coming, right? Someone has to witness this disaster firsthand." I felt a spike of panic, imagining her marching into that elegant event just to undermine me. My mom tried to intervene, but Vanessa simply waved her off with a breezy, "Relax, Mom. I'm doing this for Hannah's own good." But as she walked past me, she whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "He won't show, and when he doesn't, I'll be right there watching." In that moment, something inside me hardened. The days leading up to the gala felt like walking on the edge of a knife, each moment tinged with the possibility of cutting myself open. Vanessa hovered constantly, pretending she was just curious, but I could feel her waiting, hoping for my downfall. She made snide remarks about renting escorts, buying fake invitations online, and delusionally believing rich men date plain girls. Every jab dug deeper, but I refused to let her see me break. Instead, I channeled my anxiety into preparing for the night, even though part of me still feared she might be right. On the afternoon of the gala, I sat in my room surrounded by dresses, shoes, and hairpins that didn't feel like me. Vanessa had swung by earlier, tossing fashion magazines onto my bed as if I were a lost cause. But I ignored her suggestions and picked a soft navy dress that made me feel calm, grounded, and genuinely beautiful, something I hadn't felt in years. As I adjusted the straps in the mirror, I realized my hands were trembling, not because of Vanessa, but because Liam's world still felt like a mystery I was walking into blind. Just before 6, a sleek, black car pulled up in front of my parents' house. Vanessa practically sprinted to the window, and I could hear the shock in her voice, even though she tried to mask it. A luxury sedan? Please, could have been rented. She strutted toward the front door with me, analyzing every detail of the driver's attire as if she were hunting for evidence of my lie. My pulse pounded in my ears, but when the driver smiled politely and said, "Miss Rivera, Mr. Archer is expecting you," a weight lifted off my chest. Inside the car, I tried to breathe, but nerves coiled around my lungs like vines. The city lights blurred past the window, glimmering with a surreal glow, and I couldn't stop wondering what exactly I was stepping into. Liam hadn't told me much about the gala, except that it was important to his family. That phrase alone sent a shiver down my spine. I suddenly understood that this wasn't just any event, it was a stage, and he was bringing me into the spotlight with him. When the car pulled into the circular driveway of the Archer Grand Hall, I felt my breath leave my body. The building towered above me, glowing with warm golden lights and filled with guests stepping out of cars that probably cost more than my entire life savings. As I stepped out, I caught sight of photographers, journalists, and what looked like political figures mingling near the entrance. I froze, gripping my tiny clutch like it was a lifeline. I was in way over my head. Then Liam appeared at the top of the steps. He looked incredible in a tailored black suit, but it was the softness in his eyes, the warmth that made everything else fade. When he walked toward me, the world seemed to part for him. "Hannah," he said, with a smile that made my chest bloom with relief. "You look beautiful." I felt my tension unravel just enough to breathe again, and when he gently took my hand, something inside me whispered that I belonged here with him, even if the rest of this world was unfamiliar. He guided me inside, introducing me to people whose names I instantly forgot. CEOs, philanthropists, board members, all greeting Liam with reverence. And that's when it began to click, the way everyone's posture shifted around him, the way conversations paused when he entered a room. He wasn't just wealthy. He wasn't just important. He was someone whose presence carried weight in every corner of the hall. But the true revelation didn't come until I drifted near a display showcasing the Archer Foundation's history. I skimmed the plaques, scanning the photos, until I paused at one that showed 3 generations of Archer men standing proudly beside the headline, "The Archer Legacy Continues. Billionaire Philanthropist Family Expands Global Reach." In the center stood a younger version of the man I had just arrived with. My stomach flipped so violently I had to steady myself on the edge of the exhibit. Liam didn't just attend the event. He belonged to the family who owned the entire thing. Before I could fully take in what I was seeing, a soft voice spoke behind me. "You didn't know, did you?" I turned to see an older woman, elegant and poised, watching me with gentle curiosity. "Liam never brags. That's always been his way." She introduced herself, Evelyn Archer. Liam's mother and I felt my knees weaken. She smiled knowingly, as if she understood everything I was struggling to process. As if sensing my spiraling thoughts, Liam returned to my side, placing a reassuring hand on my back. I looked up at him, my voice barely a whisper. "Why didn't you tell me?" His eyes softened with a mix of vulnerability and regret. "Because I didn't want you to like me for this," he said quietly. "I wanted you to like me for me." It hit me then, so suddenly it almost hurt. I had walked into a billionaire gala, with the heir to the entire empire without even knowing it. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at Liam as the truth settled over me like a shimmering, disorienting veil. The sounds of the gala, blurred glasses clinking, orchestras swelling, laughter echoing, while a tight, panicked knot twisted in my chest. I didn't belong here. Not among the billionaire families, the old money elites, the polished heirs weaving through the room like they'd been born knowing how to command it. Yet somehow, Liam held on to me, as if I were the only one in the room who mattered. His touch steadied me, even as my mind spun in a dozen directions. I tried to swallow my anxiety, but questions flooded in faster than I could contain them. Had everyone known who I was the moment I walked in? Were they judging me now? Me, the girl from a modest neighborhood who drove a secondhand sedan and reused her coffee cups to save money? I felt exposed, like a spotlight had been shined directly onto all my insecurities. Liam must have noticed the shake in my breathing because he leaned down and whispered, "Hannah, don't worry about them. You're here with me." But the words didn't reach the part of me that was terrified of being exactly what Vanessa always said I was. Out of place, out of my depth, and unworthy. We moved through the crowd, and Liam introduced me to more people whose names I couldn't keep straight. Their smiles were polite but distant. Their eyes flickered over me, appraising, assessing, trying to place me in their invisible hierarchy. I clung tighter to Liam's arm, and he squeezed my hand each time my nerves spiked. Still, the more I saw how the room reacted to him, the more I understood the weight of the world he came from, and the heavier the fear grew that I didn't fit into it no matter how much he insisted I did. Then, like the universe had a twisted sense of timing, I heard a voice behind me that made my stomach drop. Well, 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 well. Vanessa's tone was practically singing with satisfaction. I froze before I even turned around, already knowing that disaster had arrived. She stood there, draped in a gown she had no business wearing, shimmering gold, plunging neckline. The kind of dress meant for someone who had been invited. Worse, she looked around as if she herself were the star of the evening. "Hope I'm not crashing," she said with a smirk, her eyes flicking between me and Liam like she'd caught us in a lie. Liam blinked, startled. "Hannah, who is this?" he asked gently. Before I could respond, Vanessa stepped forward and extended her hand with exaggerated charm. "I'm Vanessa Rivera," she announced proudly, Hannah's older sister. Her gaze narrowed slightly, playful but poisonous. "I just wanted to meet the man my sister claimed was her boyfriend. You know, just to make sure he wasn't part of some creative story." My fingers curled into fists at my sides, and humiliation flushed through me like a fever spreading under my skin. Liam remained calm, frustratingly calm, as he shook her hand. "It's nice to meet you," he said politely. "But Hannah doesn't make up stories." Vanessa chuckled lightly, as if amused by his defense. "Oh, I'm sure," she said in a tone that suggested she believed the opposite. She turned to me with raised brows. "You didn't tell me he was this wealthy. A gala? A family foundation? A limousine?" Her voice grew sharper with each word. "Come on, Hannah. Even you have to admit this is a bit much." With every syllable she uttered, the air around us tightened. Guests began to notice the tension, pausing their conversations to glance over. Liam's jaw tensed, and he stepped closer to me, placing a protective hand on the small of my back. "I invited Hannah," he said firmly. "She belongs here." Vanessa scoffed at that, letting out a laugh that echoed harshly across the room. "Oh, please, Liam. No offense, but my sister isn't exactly gala material." My heart dropped, and I felt the sting of tears threatening to break free. I took a shaky breath, desperate to hold myself together. But the hurt in Vanessa's voice wasn't confusion, it was envy, wrapped in cruelty. She wasn't here to protect me from embarrassment. She was here to cause it. Liam saw the pain in my expression and immediately turned to Vanessa, his voice now carrying a cold edge I'd never heard before. "You should leave," he said simply. "This isn't your event, and you're making Hannah uncomfortable." Vanessa blinked, stunned that someone had dared to challenge her. That was when Evelyn Archer appeared again, her presence like a quiet storm rolling in. She looked at Vanessa with a kind but unyielding gaze. "Young lady," she said gently but firmly, "this event is invitation only, and your behavior is not appropriate." Vanessa's face fell for the first time all night. Color drained from her cheeks, and she opened her mouth to protest only for Evelyn to add, "Hannah is our guest, and we are honored to have her." The crowd around us went silent, and Vanessa realized in front of an entire room of elites that she had miscalculated in the worst possible way. The room felt frozen after Evelyn's words, like every breath had been sucked away all at once. Vanessa stood there, trembling, barely noticeable, but I knew her well enough to recognize when her confidence cracked. Her eyes darted around the hall as whispers rippled through the crowd, soft but unmistakable. People were watching her, Not with admiration, but with that sharp judgment she usually reserved for others. For the first time in years, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face, and part of me didn't know whether to feel vindicated or sad. Liam tightened his arm around me, his voice low and steady. "Let's step outside for a moment," he murmured, guiding me away from the circle of eyes. My heart still pounded, and I felt unsteady on my feet as we moved toward one of the balcony doors. The cool night air washed over my skin as soon as we stepped outside, grounding me in a way the overwhelming heat inside the hall never could. I leaned against the railing, inhaling deeply, trying to make sense of everything that had just happened. Lights across the city sparkled below us, casting reflections on the river that looked alive and shimmering. Liam stood beside me silently at first, giving me the space I needed to collect myself. Finally, I whispered, "I didn't want this to happen. I didn't want her to embarrass herself." He turned toward me, his expression soft yet resolute. "Hannah, she didn't embarrass herself because of you. She did it because she couldn't stand the idea of you being happy without her control." His words sliced through me with painful clarity. I stared down at my trembling hands, realizing how much of my life had been shaped by fear. Fear of disappointing my family, fear of not being enough, fear of confirming the worst things Vanessa said about me. I kept waiting for her approval, I admitted. Even when she mocked me, I still hoped she'd see something in me worth respecting. Liam reached out and gently laced his fingers through mine. "You don't need her approval to be worthy," he said. "You never did." Before I could answer, the balcony door opened behind us, and I tensed instinctively. I turned, expecting Vanessa, but instead Evelyn stepped forward, her expression warm but serious. "I'm sorry for what happened in there," she said softly. "You didn't deserve to be spoken to like that." I felt my eyes warm again, but this time, not from humiliation this time, it was relief. Evelyn approached me with the calm assurance of someone who genuinely cared. "Liam doesn't bring just anyone to events like this," she continued. "He brings people who matter." That simple sentence almost broke me in the best way. Evelyn excused herself gently, leaving Liam and me alone again under the glow of the city. He turned me toward him with a tenderness that disarmed every fear still clinging to me. "Hannah," he said quietly, "there's something you should know." My heart fluttered, uncertain but hopeful. He hesitated for a beat before continuing. "I didn't bring you here because I wanted to show you off. I brought you because I want you to be part of my life, my real life." The sincerity in his eyes held me in place, steady, secure, wanted. I didn't realize tears had begun to slip down my cheeks until he reached up and brushed them away with his thumb. He leaned closer, his forehead resting gently against mine, and for a moment, everything around us blurred into something soft and warm. "I like you," he whispered, "for exactly who you are. Not because of where you come from, or how fancy your world is. I like you." Just when the moment felt suspended in the air, we heard a hesitant voice from behind. Vanessa stood at the threshold of the balcony, makeup smudged, her posture no longer sharp or commanding. She looked smaller somehow, unsure, almost lost. "Hannah," she began shakily, "can we talk?" Liam gave me a questioning glance, but I nodded, stepping forward slowly. Vanessa's chin trembled, and she lowered her eyes. I'm sorry," she said, the words sounding foreign in her mouth. "I shouldn't have come here. I shouldn't have said those things." Her apology didn't erase the years of damage, but it was the first crack in the wall she had built around herself. I didn't rush to comfort her, didn't excuse her behavior. I simply said, "I deserved better from you." She nodded, tears forming, and for once she didn't argue. She didn't deflect. She just absorbed the truth and let it settle inside her. Then she whispered the one sentence I never expected to hear. I was jealous. She didn't stay long after that. Security escorted her out discreetly, and the gala resumed like a storm that had finally passed. When I returned inside with Liam, people smiled at me not out of politeness, but out of genuine acceptance. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't shrinking in someone else's shadow. I was standing in my own light as the night wound down. Liam pulled me close and said in a voice low enough that only I could hear, "This is just the beginning, Hannah. And looking at him, at the warmth in his eyes, the quiet strength in his touch, I realized he wasn't talking about the gala. He was talking about us.